From the boardroom to the basketball court, former two-time NBA champion Kenny Smith's new memoir, Talk of Champions, does a deeper dive into the people who have shaped his life and what he's learned along the way. He joins us now. The champ is here. Kenny Smith, thanks so much for taking some time with us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Let's dive right in here. I want to know, in terms of the transferable leadership skills from the basketball court even into the boardroom, what really sticks out from what you've learned along the way?
Well, I think overall, when I always read a lot of self-help books. Let's start there. And then I realized that, it's really from one person's perspective. So when I wrote the book, I also thought that this could be a great self-help book because every chapter is great people that I've met and what I've learned from them. So you now have 15 self-help books with inside. So when you say, wow, you know what, I do something, and I realize, wow, Bill Russell does that, is a chapter after him. Michael Jordan does that. Magic Johnson does that. Charles Barkley, Shaq. So for me, it was just more about making sure that, all of these things are transferable in terms of leadership qualities, the same things that you need to lead your boardroom is the same thing that happens and qualities that happens in young men early because you're leading 12 or 15 people in your locker room or decisively somewhere else.
Athletes, current and former, are now diversifying where their time is spent, including investments into business ventures. What do you look for in the leadership qualities from some of the very companies and the heads of those companies that you choose to partner with even?
Well, interestingly enough, I wrote a chapter about this. I've had some interesting people sleep on my couch. And one of them is David Kohler from the Kohler family, who is arguably in the plumbing industry, the best in the world. And, we were in college in 18 and we're sitting on my couch and we're talking about all of the things that we would ascend. And one of the things that he said, well, Kenny, when I start with the company, I'm going to start as a plumber. I said, what? Your dad owns a company. How are you going to start as a plumber? He said, well, I'm going to start as a plumber because if there's something that happens and they say, hey, these screws are worth this amount, I'm going to know what that is as a leader of the company. I said, wow, that's the same thing I do in sports. He said, what do you mean? I know every person's role on the team, from the center to the coaches, the assistant coaches. So it's always knowing the gravity of what happens inside of your organization. And so at 17 and 18, I realized that big business and sports pay parallel in what was going on.
I think that's the headline right there, and that Kohler was sleeping on your couch before the business came to be what it is in an internationally known entity that it is right now. That's really interesting. Even as we think about some of the different ways that your career has progressed, going from basketball and on court now to being an analyst. I mean, how has, from your perspective, the game, the players evolved even in how they spend their time off the court?
Well, I think the game is involved in many ways because before, I think players were looking to invest in businesses, or most of the time, early on in our careers, were trying to figure out how to manage certain things. Now they are the business. And, there are very few businesses that can say, well, we were profitable $50 million this year. There are very few businesses in the world that could say that. So as an individual, when you have someone who says, I was profitable for $50 million or more this year, they are the business. It's how to attain themselves and continue that. And then what to invest in a profitable business instead of a business that's trying to be a startup.
Absolutely. I wonder how much of the talk, because we see the talk that's on there. You're talking about, of course, right now, the playoffs leading up to the championship and the NBA finals as well. But, off studio, are you guys talking about your business investments? I mean, we have spoken with CEOs of some of the companies that we know. Shaq has served on the board of directors at. We were just talking to Papa John's last week or a couple weeks back. How often are you guys feeding each other just information about your own kind of investment strategy or the businesses that you are looking to work with?
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head with Shaq. Most people see me pushing him in a Christmas tree and say, "Man, that was so funny." But I think for overall, we have all the time business conversations, and I wrote this in the book about how Shaq and we were having a conversation, and I said, "Shaq, do you feel like at times you're oversaturating yourself? You have a lot of commercials, you're overplay." He says, "Well, Kenny, I'm in not the NBA anymore. There's a certain window of opportunity that's going to be available and open for me." And I said, "Yeah, but what about all your endorsements?" He stopped me right there. He said, "No, I never look at them as endorsements, Kenny. I look at them as partnerships. So our partnerships, then I'm going to do for them certain things that I wouldn't do for other people, and vice versa. And in those partnerships, we learn certain things." He also has what he says, "I have a Shaq Summit where all of my partners come together and then they learn about each other." So right then, my business acumen picked up years ago. And from that point on, I became a better businessman.
That's amazing. I mean, look, move over Warren Buffett's annual shareholder meeting and introduce now Shaq Summit, where perhaps that will get some more of the coverage here on an investment and kind of business profile basis as well. And you guys have an amazing team over there. Of course, people see that day in, day out, night in, night out with Ernie, Charles, yourself, Shaq as well. I'll give a shout out to Slice, who's like a brother to me. Even as you think about this next wave of where NBA content is consumed, how it's consumed, and how viewers are able to engage with it, what is the sports storytelling in streaming that you would like to see be more emphasized?
Well, I think right now, again, that there are very few people in the world. Elon Musk, let's say, is a billionaire. However, he's also, if you separately, he's the face of the company. Each individual, LeBron James, that's in the playoffs now, Joker from Denver, you have Jimmy Butler from the Miami Heat. They're the faces of multi-billion-dollar companies. So what they do affects every aspect of the company. And so on and off the court, which most people don't realize when they say, "Oh, this guy should be able to do this or do that," not realizing and never have been the face of a multi-billion-dollar organization. Then you think of a guy like Joel Embiid, who won the MVP. Now he's the face of the NBA, a trillion-dollar organization. So very few people realize that these young men are faces of multi-billion-dollar and trillion-dollar companies, and they have to act and move accordingly because everything they do on and off the court affects the bottom line for the whole business, not them as an individual. They think that it's, their playing time, their thing. No, it's multi and trillion-dollar industries that are being affected by every move that they make.
How can players that are trying to get to the league make sure that they are capitalizing on the business of their name, their image, their likeness, even before they step foot on an NBA or a professional level court, knowing that, careers can take wild turns at the end of the day. And we got a fresh new talent and prospect, Wemby, that's coming in, who's got a ton of fanfare around him right now.
Well, Wemby has an ability because he's the first global superstar initially. Like most players come in and are known, like LeBron James, he was known 100% here in America. Wemby's known worldwide first. And that is a unique position. So Wembanyama has an unbelievable access to, people in France and in Europe that LeBron James had to grow and get. So his ability is going to be much different. I think coming in, you've already been a leader of men and young men in your life. So I think that if you realize that you continue that attribute, those are the same qualities that CEOs look for. I have an AAU team at one time. I was coaching a fifth grade team, and the mom is screaming at me. She's like, "My son should be playing more." I'm like, "Well, I'm not going to talk basketball with you. I'm not going to argue basketball. However, your son, I put in charge of getting the team ready to play, the stretch, on the layup line, what to do. And every time that John says one thing, 12 other kids move. Do you want me to take that quality away from him, which CEOs of every company want, so I could give him 3 extra minutes on a basketball court? Or do you want him to have the qualities that could actually own a basketball team? He said, Kenny, I'm sorry.
It puts things in perspective a little bit more there. Kenny, we got to leave things there on the day and look forward to seeing more of your coverage this NBA postseason leading up to the finals. Kenny Smith, TNT's Inside the NBA analyst. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.